This is Brick Lane in London's Spitalfields, one of England's most celebrated streets. Here, just outside the old city walls, for 3 centuries has been a place for refugees to gather and consolidate and build new lives.
This is the Cinnamon Restaurant, the self-proclaimed king of kings of all curries in Brick Lane. But 250 years ago, this was a Huguenot pawnbroker's shop. We're right across the road from the Truman Brewery. You can imagine how noisy and dirty this would have been. This is where Joseph Merceron was born in January 1764, and he would live here until he was an adult and grow up to be the boss of Bethnal Green, the Godfather of Regency London.
By the age of 24, from his office here, he was building a political and business empire that would stretch across the East End, last for half a century, and make him almost a billionaire in today's money. Joseph Merceron's childhood coincided with the worst civil unrest Spitalfields had ever seen. In the 1760s, the poor weavers regularly rioted over working conditions, and there was a constant backdrop of gunfire, military deployments and public executions. The most notorious of these was the hanging of John Verleen and John Doyle outside the Salmon and Ball at Bethnal Green for destroying the looms of a wealthy master weaver. So Joseph Merceron grew up with this really violent backdrop, and I think seeing the power of the mob certainly had an influence on how he kept hold of power in later life.
This is St Matthew Bethnal Green. It's a fine mid-18th century church built by George Dance the Elder. It's probably mostly famous for the funerals of the Cray twins, so it's become the epitome of the church where London gangster funerals happen. But the first gangster funeral was that of Joseph Merceron in 1839. 20,000 people lined the Bethnal Green Road that day. This building is also the centrepiece of Merceron's story. Back in those days, this was the equivalent of the town hall, and Merceron used to hold monster meetings here where he would get a mob in to vote for him and his henchmen every year. Here is a housing estate, but 200 years ago it was fields that were leased by Merceron's father. When Merceron took them over, he used to host bull baiting and dog fights here at exactly the time on a Sunday morning when the rector was trying to have a service in the church.
There are only 2 surviving graves in the churchyard. One belongs to the Merceron family and the other belongs to his best friend Peter Renvoise. The odd thing is that they both survived when the church was almost destroyed on the first day of the Blitz in 1940. The church was completely ruined and the churchyard was just a sea of mud the next day.
But these 2 graves still survived, even that. This one here is the grave of Joseph Merceron and his family, and behind me in the other corner is his henchman Peter Renvoise. They spent a whole lifetime cheating the law. I think it's wonderful that they managed to cheat the Luftwaffe too.